Right, hello. I'm going to continue with C.S. Lewis, as you may or may not have guessed from the title. So what I'm about to read is from his book, which is called Mere Christianity. It's from a section entitled What Christians Believe. And this is the first part of his assertion as to what Christians believe, the rival conceptions of God. So here we go. Give me 2 seconds. Okay. I have been asked to tell you what Christians believe, and I am going to begin by telling you one thing that Christians do not need to believe. If you are a Christian, you do not have to believe that all the other religions are simply wrong all through. If you are an atheist, you do have to believe that the main point in all the religions of the world is simply one huge mistake. If you are a Christian, you are free to think that all these religions, even the queerest ones, contain at least some hint of the truth. When I was an atheist, I had to try to persuade myself that most of the human race have always been wrong about the question that mattered to them most. When I became a Christian, I was able to take a more liberal view. But of course, being a Christian does mean thinking that where Christianity differs from other religions, Christianity is right and they are wrong. As in arithmetic, there is only one right answer to a sum, and all other answers are wrong. But some of the wrong answers are much nearer being right than others. The first big division of humanity is into the majority, who believe in some kind of God or gods, and the minority who do not. On this point, Christianity lines up with the majority, lines up with ancient Greeks and Romans, modern savages, Stoics, Platonists, Hindus, Mohammedans, etc., against the modern Western European materialist. Now I go on to the next big division. People who all believe in God can be divided according to the sort of God they believe in. There are two very different ideas on this subject. One of them is the idea that he is beyond good and evil. We humans call one thing good and another thing bad. But according to some people, that is merely our human point of view. These people would say that the wiser you become, the less you would want to call anything good or bad, and the more dearly you would see that everything is good in one way and bad in another, and that nothing could have been different. Consequently, these people think that long before you got anywhere near the divine point of view, the distinction would have disappeared altogether. We call a cancer bad, they would say, because it kills a man. But you might just as well call a successful surgeon bad because he kills a cancer. Or righteous, a God who takes sides, who loves love and hates hatred, who wants us to behave in one way and not in another. The first of these views, the one that thinks God beyond good and evil, is called pantheism. It was held by the great Prussian philosopher Hegel, and as far as I can understand them, by the Hindus. The other view is held by Jews, Mohammedans, and Christians. And with this big difference between pantheism and the Christian idea of God, there usually goes another. Pantheists usually believe that God, so to speak, animates the universe as you animate your body, that the universe almost is God, so that if he did not exist, he would not exist either, and anything you find in the universe is a part of God. The Christian idea is quite different. They think God invented and made the universe, like a man making a picture or composing a tune. A painter is not a picture, and he does not die if his picture is destroyed. You may say he's put a lot of himself into it, but you only mean that all its beauty and interest had come out of his head. His skill is not in the picture in the same way that it is in his head or even in his hands. Except you see how this difference between pantheists and Christians hang together with the one another. If you do not take the distinction between good and bad very seriously, then it's easy to say that anything you find in this world is a part of God. But of course, if you think something's really bad, and God really good, then you cannot talk like that. You must believe that God is separate from the world and that some of the things we see in it are contrary to his will. Confronted with a cancer or a slum, the pantheist can say, if you could only see it from the divine point of view, you would realize that this also is God. The Christian replies, don't talk damned nonsense. And there's a note. One listener complained of the word damned as frivolous swearing. But I mean exactly what I say. Nonsense that is damned is under God's curse and will, apart from God's grace, lead those who believe it to eternal death. For Christianity is a fighting religion. It thinks God made the world, that space and time, heat and cold, and all the colours and tastes and all the animals and vegetables are things that God made up out of his head, as a man makes up a story. But it also thinks that a great many things have gone wrong with the world that God has made, and that God insists, and insists very loudly, on our putting them right again. And of course, that raises a very big question. If a good God made the world, why has it gone wrong? And for many years, I simply refused to listen to the Christian answers to this question, because I kept on feeling, whatever you say and however clever your arguments are, isn't it much simpler and easier to say that the world was not made by any intelligent power? Aren't all your arguments simply a complicated attempt to avoid the obvious? But then that threw me back into another difficulty. My argument against God was that the universe seemed so cruel and unjust. But how had I got this idea of just and unjust? A man does not call a line crooked unless he has some idea of a straight line. What was I comparing this universe with when I called it unjust? If the whole show was bad and senseless from A to Z, so to speak, why did I, who was supposed to be part of the show, find myself in such violent reaction against it? A man feels wet when he falls into water because man is not a water animal. A fish would not feel wet. Of course, I could have given up my idea of justice by saying it was nothing but a private idea of my own. But if I did that, then my argument against God collapsed too. For the argument depended upon saying that the world was really unjust, not simply that it did not happen to please my private fancies. Thus, in the very act of trying to prove that God did not exist, in other words, that the whole of reality was senseless, I found I was forced to assume that one part of reality, namely my idea of justice, was full of sense. Consequently, atheism turns out to be too simple. If the whole universe has no meaning, we should never have found out that it has no meaning. Just as if there were no light in the universe and therefore no creatures with eyes, we should never know it was dark. Dark would be without meaning. All right, everyone. I may just skip on a second because it feels very quick. Okay, so this is from C.S. Lewis, Mere Christianity, the section entitled What Christians Believe, or What Do Christians Believe? And this is part 2, The Invasion. Very well then, atheism is too simple. And I will tell you another view that is also too simple. It is the view I call Christianity and water. The view which simply says there is a good God in heaven and everything is all right, leaving out all the difficult and terrible doctrines about sin and hell and the devil and the redemption. Both these are boys' philosophies. It is no good asking for a simple religion. After all, real things are not simple. They look simple, but they are not. The table I am sitting at looks simple, but ask a scientist to tell you what it is really made of, all about the atoms and how the light waves rebound from them and hit my eye, and what they do to the optic nerve and what it does to my brain. And of course, you find that what we call seeing a table lands you in mysteries and complications which you can hardly get to the end of. A child saying a child's prayer looks simple, and if you are content to stop there, well and good. But if you are not, and the modern world usually is not, if you want to go on and ask what is really happening, then you must be prepared for something difficult. If we ask for something more than simplicity, it is silly then to complain that the something more is not simple. Very often, however, this silly procedure is adopted by people who are not silly, but who, consciously or unconsciously, wish to destroy Christianity. Such people put up a version of Christianity suitable for a child of 6 and make that the object of their attack. When you try to explain the Christian doctrine as it is really held by an instructed adult, they then complain that you are making their heads turn round and that it is all too complicated. And if there really were a God, they are sure he would have made religion simple because simplicity is so beautiful, etc., etc. You must be on your guard against these people, for they will change their ground every minute and only waste your tune. I think that's supposed to say time. Notice too their idea of God making religion simple, as if religion was something God invented and not his statement to us of certain quite unalterable facts about his own nature. Besides being complicated, reality in my experience is usually odd. It is not neat, not obvious, not what you expect. For instance, when you have grasped that the Earth and the other planets all go around the sun, you would naturally expect that all the planets were made to match, all at equal distances from each other, say, or distances that regularly increased, or all the same size, or else getting bigger or smaller as you go farther from the sun. In fact, you find no rhyme or reason, that we can see, about either the sizes or the distances. And some of them have one moon, one has 4, one has 2, some have none, and one has a ring. Reality, in fact, is usually something you could not have guessed. That is one of the reasons I believe Christianity. It is a religion you could not have guessed. If it offered us just the kind of universe we had always expected, I should feel we were making it up. But in fact, it is not the sort of thing anyone would have made up. It has just that queer twist about it that real things have. So let us leave behind all these boys' philosophies, these over-simple answers. The problem is not simple, and the answer is not going to be simpler either. What is the problem? A universe that contains much that is obviously bad and apparently meaningless, but containing creatures like ourselves who know that it is bad and meaningless. There are only 2 views that face all the facts. One is the Christian view that this is a good world that has gone wrong, but still retains the memory of what it ought to have been. The other is the view called dualism. Dualism means the belief that there are 2 equal and independent powers at the back of everything, one of them good and the other bad, and that this universe is the battlefield in which they fight out an endless war. I personally think that next to Christianity, dualism is the manliest and most sensible creed on the market, but it has a catch. The 2 powers, or spirits, or gods, the good one and the bad one, are supposed to be quite independent. They both existed from all eternity. Neither of them made the other. Neither of them has any more right than the other to call itself God. Each presumably thinks it is good and thinks the other bad. One of them likes hatred and cruelty. The other likes love and mercy, and each backs its own view. Now, what do we mean when we call one of them the good power and the other the bad power? Either we are merely saying that we happen to prefer the one to the other, like preferring beer to cider, or else we are saying that whatever the 2 powers think about it, and whichever we humans at the moment happen to like, one of them is actually wrong, actually mistaken in regarding itself as good. Now, if we mean merely that we happen to prefer thirst, then we must give up talking about good and evil at all. For good means what you ought to prefer, quite regardless of what you happen to like at any given moment. If being good meant simply joining the side you happen to fancy for no real reason, then good would not deserve to be called good. So we must mean that one of the 2 powers is actually wrong and the other actually right. But the moment you say that, you are putting into the universe a third thing in addition to the two powers, some law or standard or rule of good, which one of the powers conforms to and the other fails to conform to. But since the powers are judged by this standard, then this standard, or the being who made this standard, is farther back and higher up than either of them. And he will be the real God. In fact, what we meant by calling them good and bad turns out to be that one of them is in a right relation to the real ultimate God and the other in a wrong relation to him. The same point can be made in a different way. If dualism is true, then the bad power must be a being who likes badness for its own sake. But in reality, we have no experience of anyone liking badness just because it is bad. The nearest we can get to it is in cruelty. But in real life, people are cruel for one of two reasons. Either because they are sadists, that is, because they have a sexual perversion which makes cruelty a cause of sensual pleasure to them, or else for the sake of something they are going to get out of it, money or power or safety. But pleasure, money, power and safety are all, as far as they go, good things. The badness consists in pursuing them in the wrong method or in the wrong way or too much. I do not mean, of course, that the people who do this are not desperately wicked. I do mean that wickedness, when you examine it, turns out to be the pursuit of some good in the wrong way. You can be good for the mere sake of goodness. You cannot be bad for the mere sake of badness. You can do a kind action when you are not feeling kind at all, and when it gives you no pleasure simply because kindness is right. But no one ever did a cruel action simply because cruelty is wrong, only because cruelty was pleasant or useful to him. In other words, badness cannot succeed even in being bad in the same way in which goodness is good. Goodness is, so to speak, itself. Badness is only spoiled goodness. And there must be something good first before it can be spoiled. We called sadism a sexual perversion, but you must first have the idea of a normal sexuality before you can talk of its being perverted. And you can see which is the perversion, because you can explain the perverted from the normal and cannot explain the normal from the perverted. It follows that this bad power, who is supposed to be on an equal footing with the good power and to love badness in the same way as the good power loves goodness, is a mere bogey. In order to be bad, he must have good things to want and then to pursue in the wrong way. He must have impulses which were originally good in order to be able to pervert them. But if he is bad, he cannot supply himself either with good things to desire or good impulses to pervert. He must be getting both from the good power. And if so, then he is not independent. He is part of the good power's world. He was made either by the good power or by some power above them both. Put it more simply still, to be bad, he must exist and have intelligence and will. But existence, intelligence and will are in themselves good. Therefore, he must be getting them from the good power. Even to be bad, he must borrow or steal from his opponent. And do you now begin to see why Christianity has always said that the devil is a fallen angel? That is not a mere story for the children. It is a real recognition of the fact that evil is a parasite, not an original thing. The powers which enable evil to carry on are powers given it by goodness. All the things which enable a bad man to be effectively bad are in themselves good things. Resolution, cleverness, good looks, existence itself. That is why dualism, in a strict sense, will not work. But I freely admit that real Christianity, as distinct from Christianity and water, goes much nearer to dualism than people think. One of the things that surprised me when I first read the New Testament seriously was that it talked so much about a dark power in the universe, a mighty evil spirit who was held to be the power behind death and disease and sin. The difference is that Christianity thinks this dark power was created by God and was good when he was created and went wrong. Christianity agrees with dualism that this universe is at war, but it does not think this is a war between independent powers. It thinks it is a civil war, a rebellion, and that we are living in a part of the universe occupied by the rebel. Enemy occupied territory. That is what this world is. Christianity is the story of how the rightful king has landed, you might say landed in disguise, and is calling us all to take part in a great campaign of sabotage. When you go to church, you are really listening in to the secret wireless from our friends. That is why the enemy is so anxious to prevent us from going. He does it by playing on our conceit and our laziness and our intellectual snobbery. I know someone will ask me, do you really mean at this time of day to reintroduce our old friend the devil? Hoofs and horns and all? Well, what the time of day has to do with it, I don't know. And I am not particular about the hoofs and the horns. But in other respects, my answer is yes, I do. I do not claim to know anything about his personal appearance. If anybody really wants to know him better, I would say to that person, don't worry, if you really want to, you will. Whether you'll like it when you do is another question. Okay, I'm just going to come back for a second. There is a third reading in this section. I mean, I don't know how with it you all are, but you can let me know. I guess you can, I don't know, say yes if you'd like me to go on and no if you'd like to ask any questions, I suppose. Don't all rush, obviously, all the time in the world over here. But I do like Lewis, but I don't mind at all. So it's up to you. I would say answer in JC's voice, but it's no problem, Jonathan. Anybody out there? I do have a crystal ball on my bookshelf. You can't see it at the moment, but I wasn't planning on a seance. Okay, so I'm guessing there is a delay because at first I couldn't see anyone at all, and then and then there was a load of comments. So the question is, would you like me to read one more piece of Lewis, which follows on from the last piece that you sort of missed? Or does anybody have any questions? Or in respect of Sunny Sparkle's requests as opposed to questions? I'm easy. Maybe everyone else has fallen asleep. I don't know. Horrific finger-related keyboard injury. Martin, you're a superstar. Okay, I'm going to go with Martin just because I can. And I will probably cut this video down into 3 shorter bits and put it on the other channel, which is now monetized. I can let you know because I found out the other day. Where are we? Right, let me just... Jonathan, you missed your chance. I have a similar position to Lewis in most key respects, apart from one glaring one. But feel free to postulate any specific questions. Okay, this is from Mere Christianity, a section entitled "What do Christians believe?" or "What Christians believe," and this is part 3, the shocking alternative. Christians then believe that an evil power has made himself, for the present, the prince of this world. And of course, that raises problems. Is this state of affairs in accordance with God's will or not? If it is, he's a strange God, you will say. And if it is not, how can anything happen contrary to the will of a being with absolute power? But anyone who has been in authority knows how a thing can be in accordance with your will in one way and not in another. It may be quite sensible for a mother to say to the children, I'm not going to go and make you tidy the schoolroom every night. You've got to learn to keep it tidy on your own. Then she goes up one night and finds the teddy bear and the ink and the French grammar all lying in the grate. This is against her will. She would prefer the children to be tidy, but on the other hand, it is her will which has left the children so free to be untidy. The same thing arises in any regiment or trade union or school. You make a thing voluntary and then half the people do not do it. That is not what you willed, but your will has made it possible. It's probably the same in the universe. God created things which had free will. That means creatures which can go either wrong or right. Some people think they can imagine a creature which was free but had no possibility of going wrong. I cannot. If a thing is free to be good, it is also free to be bad. And free will is what has made evil possible. Why then did God give them free will? Because free will, though it makes evil possible, is also the only thing that makes possible any love or goodness or joy worth having. A world of automata, of creatures that worked like machines, would hardly be worth creating. The happiness which God designs for his higher creatures is the happiness of being freely, voluntarily united to him and to each other in an ecstasy of love and delight, compared with which the most rapturous love between a man and a woman on this earth is mere milk and water. And for that they must be free. Of course, God knew what would happen if they used their freedom the wrong way. Apparently he thought it worth the risk. Perhaps we feel inclined to disagree with him. But there is a difficulty about disagreeing with God. He is the source from which all of your reasoning power comes. You could not be right and he wrong any more than a stream can rise higher than its own source. When you are arguing against him, you are arguing against the very power that makes you able to argue at all. It is like cutting off the branch you are sitting on. If God thinks this state of war in the universe a price worth paying for free will, that is for making a live world in which creatures can do real good or harm and something of real importance can happen instead of a toy world which only moves when he pulls the strings, then we may take it that it is worth paying. When we have understood about free will, we shall see how silly it is to ask, as somebody once asked me, why did God make a creature of such rotten stuff that it went wrong? The better stuff a creature is made of, the cleverer, the stronger and freer it is, then the better it would be if it goes right, but also the worse it will be if it goes wrong. A cow cannot be very good or very bad. A dog can be both better and worse, a child better and worse still, an ordinary man still more so, a man of genius still more so, a superhuman spirit best or worst of all. How did the dark power go wrong? Here, no doubt, we ask a question to which human beings cannot give an answer with any certainty. A reasonable and traditional guess based on our own experiences of going wrong, however, can be offered. The moment you have a self at all, there is a possibility of putting yourself first, wanting to be the center, wanting to be, in fact, God. That was the sin of Satan, and that was the sin he taught the human race. Some people think the fall of man had something to do with sex, but that is a mistake. The story in the book of Genesis rather suggests that some corruption in our sexual nature followed the fall and was the result of the fall, not its cause. What Satan put into the heads of our remote ancestors was the idea that they could be like gods, could set up on their own as if they had created themselves, be their own masters, invent some sort of happiness for themselves outside God, apart from God. And out of that hopeless attempt has come nearly all that we call human history: money, poverty, ambition, war, prostitution, classes, empires, slavery, the long, terrible story of man trying to find something other than God which will make him happy. The reason why it can never succeed is this: God made us, invented us as a man invents an engine. A car is made to run on gasoline, and it would not run properly on anything else. Now, God designed the human machine to run on himself. He himself is the fuel our spirits were designed to burn, or the food our spirits were designed to feed on. There is no other. That is why it is just no good asking God to make us happy in our own way without bothering about religion. God cannot give us a happiness and a peace apart from himself because it is not there. There is no such thing. That is the key to history. Terrific energy is expended. Civilizations are built up. Excellent institutions devised. But each time something goes wrong. Some fatal flaw always brings the selfish and cruel people to the top, and it all slides back into misery and ruin. In fact, the machine conks. It seems to start up all right and runs a few yards, and then it breaks down. They are trying to run it on the wrong juice. That is what Satan has done to us humans. And what did God do? First of all, he left us conscience, the sense of right and wrong. And all through history, there have been people trying, some of them very hard, to obey it. None of them ever quite succeeded. Secondly, he sent the human race what I call good dreams. I mean those queer stories scattered all through the heathen religions about a God who dies and comes to life again, and by his death has somehow given new life to men. Thirdly, he selected one particular people and spent several centuries hammering into their heads the sort of God he was, that there was only one of him, and that he cared about right conduct. Those people were the Jews, and the Old Testament gives an account of the hammering process. Then comes the real shock. Among these Jews, there suddenly turns up a man who goes about talking as if he were God. He claims to forgive sins. He says he has always existed. He says he is coming to judge the world at the end of time. Now, let us get this clear. Among pantheists, like the Indians, anyone might say that he was part of God or one with God. There would be nothing very odd about it. But this man, since he was a Jew, could not mean that kind of God. God, in their language, meant the being outside the world who had made it and was infinitely different from anything else. And when you have grasped that, you will see what this man said was quite simply the most shocking thing that has ever been uttered by human lips. One part of the claim tends to slip past us unnoticed because we have heard it so often that we no longer see what it amounts to. I mean the claim to forgive sins, any sins. Now, unless the speaker is God, this is really so preposterous as to be comic. We can all understand how a man forgives offences against himself. You tread on my toe and I forgive you. You steal my money and I forgive you. But what should we make of a man, himself unrobbed and untrodden on, who announced that he forgave you for treading on other men's toes and stealing other men's money? Asinine fatuity is the kindest description we should give of his conduct. Yet this is what Jesus did. He told people that their sins were forgiven and never waited to consult all the other people whom their sins had undoubtedly injured. He unhesitatingly behaved as if he was the party chiefly concerned, the person chiefly offended in all offences. This makes sense only if he really was the God whose laws were broken and whose love is wounded in every sin. In the mouth of any speaker who is not God, these words would imply what I can only regard as a silliness and conceit unrivaled by any other character in history. Yet, and this is the strange, significant thing, even his enemies, when they read the Gospels, do not usually get the impression of silliness or conceit. Still less do unprejudiced readers. Christ says that he is humble and meek, and we believe him, not noticing that if he were merely a man, humility and meekness are the very last characteristics we could attribute to some of his sayings. I'm trying here to prevent anyone saying the really foolish thing that people often say about him. They say, I'm ready to accept Jesus as a great moral teacher, but I don't accept his claim to be God. That is the one thing we must not say. A man who was merely a man and said the sort of things Jesus said would not be a great moral teacher. He would either be a lunatic on a level with the man who says he is a poached egg, or else he would be the devil of hell. You must make your choice. Either this man was and is the Son of God, or else a madman or something worse. You can shut him up for a fool. You can spit at him and kill him as a demon, or you can fall at his feet and call him Lord and God. But let us not come with any patronizing nonsense about his being a great human teacher. He has not left that open to us. He did not intend to. So stick that in your pipe and smoke it. Right, there is another section, but I'm not going to read that because, you know, other days, etc. So, Jonathan, you seem to be, I don't know about struggling with something, but I'm not sure if you're understanding something that Armour of God and Cherokee are trying to put to you. So if you want to ask me, that's fine, I guess. Thank you, Armour of God. Yeah, so Jonathan, if you want to like come at me, bro, as it were, I'll try, or anybody else who has a question, then also come at me, people. I see. I think I saw, yeah, I just read your words. I don't get that. And then I just wildly extrapolated from there. So do forgive me if you're all on board with what I'm saying and understanding everything. Anybody else have a burning question or even a smouldering one or a stone cold one? If not, like, I do have stuff to do. That is broadly correct. It's not like urgent stuff. But I'm just going to wipe my nose and sit here waiting for somebody to love me. Other than that, it's all good. Don't rush me. Don't all come at once. I do love a troll, I must admit. It's just the living under a bridge with the billy goats going across that gets a bit trying. Like what? Okay. Right, these are the things I'm going to be speaking of soon. Miss Piggy, watch your babes. So I'm looking at divorce and remarriage, like sexual infidelity, that kind of stuff. Theologically, I'm not out in the street like asking people. What else? At the moment, not for YouTube, but in other news, as it were, I am looking at the Godhead and whether it's logically or theologically consistent with the claim that there is one God made in the Shema by God. Yeah, what else? What else you doing, Kay? Good question, Kay. I was just briefly looking at hermeneutics and Marian doctrine. Oh, sorry, that was a very old lady noise. Persecution continues unabated. They just will not take time off. Like, they're committed to the cause. Oh, no problem, Miss Piggy. C.S. Lewis. Yeah, persecution. I have like a piece on Raymond Ibrahim. I think it's something like Greece, basically. Churches being desecrated in Greece, and coincidentally, the numbers increasing massively tally up with quite a bit of Islamic immigration into the country. So as you can imagine, that's on all the mainstream. Oh, no, it's not. But Raymond does some amazing work. and very, like, I can attest to this, like, quite draining, distressing research, and gives monthly roundups, which I've ranted my way through in the past. You may remember. I think it's the first time I pulled out my tiny violin. That's not a metaphor. That's a real thing. So yeah, persecution. What can I say? Pray, please. Not only Christian people, but churches are a big threat. Obviously, signs of the cross are like it's like a vampire, like a weird Cecil B. DeMille, like, yeah, just excrement smear walls. If you don't know what excrement is, it begins with SH and rhymes with it. Up the walls in a church, because if you're offended that I just said shit, like in not so many words, then get a grip. What else? Oh, just the usual, like just destroying them, burning them down. You know, well done, honourable good. Yeah, I don't know what to say about it. It's just the most shocking nonsense. But it pales into insignificance. But like when you just look at the kidnap of Christian girls in Pakistan, the like forced marriage, what a load of old shiz. The rape and hostage holding of girls in Pakistan. Nigeria is just so bad. I can't even put it into words. India's getting quite dramatic. Afghanistan is the new number one for jolly good reason, as it were. North Korea is, I guess, trying to up its game. China is just China. What can you say? Like Africa, Northern Africa. Anyway, I can't remember the question. I was like, oh, what have I got going on? Yeah, so those are the things I'll be making videos on soon, I guess. And I'm going to carry on with Lewis because I can. Because I love Lewis. And get over it. So, what else? Exactly, Martin Ellen. Could you just like put that somewhere global where everyone can see it? And that would be lovely. Any questions about Paul? Love a bit of Paul. C.S. Lewis, Christianity, Islamic polemics. I don't know. You got like, what, 3-5 minutes? You don't have to. Don't mind. I just let my glasses fall down on their own. I honestly don't mind because I have nicotine levels to tend to, as one does. Easter's coming up. Hope your Lent is all going swimmingly. Mine is on track. So there's that. I should have given up something more difficult, but let's not set our expectations too high just to fail miserably. Yeah. Okay, just chit chat to each other. Miss Piggy, don't believe a word of it. He promised, Armour of God still owes Jordan and I a basket of chocolates, I believe. Never heard anything about it since. Just gone in the wind, as it were. So, last orders, gentlemen and ladies. Have I got any good news? I saw some good news. Oh, it wasn't related to religion. It was something I campaigned for. I'd say how long ago, but you'd all be asking me what face cream I use. Like, I'm talking a long time ago. To make British Sign Language recognised as a religion legally in Britain. I mean, we're not asking for it in like Zimbabwe. It's British Sign Language. But, yep, it's finally going to happen, we think. So it's only took, I can't say, it's took a long time. And finally, there's going to be a pretty momentous day coming up. So on that day, I reckon I don't know about Lewis because he uses some pretty dated words, but I think I will sign and say my video that day, or I will pre-record it, I guess, and do the little sign language thing in the corner if I get really technically brilliant in the meantime. Zakir Naik is my hero, Miss Piggy. He's a medical doctor. How can you say such things? Okay, so I have a question. Finally. Okay. Would you say that Jesus would feel positive towards self-defense, as in when your life is threatened or home country is invaded? Jolly good question, Jonathan. Right, about 4 verses just popped up and a few historic, like church doctrine. Okay. So I assume that most people initially think of if somebody slaps your cheek, turn the other. So that's being used as justification for pacifism, like aggressive pacifism, as it were, like under no circumstances retaliate. Also, we fight not against the flesh, but against the principalities and powers in high places, like the darkness, as it were. However, let me think. So, firstly, I thought of Urban II. He was a pope. You've heard of popes. He was the one who had the scholars, like religious scholars, bring about the justification for just war theologically, and he did a good, like he by extension did a good job of that. There is an argument to be made that if we love perfectly, or if we imitate a perfect love, we will. There is no greater love that a man lay down his life for that of his friends. The Bible tells us, so the Holy Spirit says that. And if we're imitators of Christ, who sacrificed himself for us, all there is no need to stand by while somebody, like, I don't know, stabs your girlfriend in the face, or I don't know, like threatens your family, invades your country, etc. Because love covers a multitude of sins anyway, but it's also justification for, like maternal love is very protective and nurturing and ready to sacrifice itself, like agape love. So there's that. Where else was I going with that? I thought, the armor of God in Ephesians tells us, like, gives us spiritual weapons. But there is an argument to be made. I mean, some of the verses explicitly seem to say that Christ will fight alone on that day, like at the end. But we are to fight against the wiles of Satan. And it tells us that, do these things in order to stand against the wiles of Satan. And after that, just to stand, as if to say, like, I don't know, I've always found that a bit chilling. Like, just standing up will be like a big achievement at that stage. So, hi, Mohammed. Also, pick up your sword, like, sell your cloak, buy a sword, I think it is. I can't remember what the bartering arrangement was. Peter specifically is told to put down his sword. I mean, he does a little, like a bit nifty to the dude's ear. But the point is that Christ has already foretold, like Isaiah has already foretold anyway, the crucifixion, but Christ has also outlined that this is what is going to happen. So Peter is not being rebuked for using his sword, only in that he's been told to put it away and he's cracked on, as it were. So it's not an admonition against defense of your fellows. It's do as you're told, like right at the point, like the climax of the story, as it were. Have I answered that properly? What would Christ's view be? Yeah. Okay. Christ didn't ever mince his words, in as much as he wasn't like hippy dippy, kind of like walking around with beads on, and that he is utterly loving. I mean, he is love himself, but not Hallmark love, not Disney kind of like bluebirds and little like whatever that thing is. Like, no, real love is passionate and cares enough to lay down your life for that of your friends. So prayer is also our foremost form of defense and attack. However, if someone breaks into your house, you know what I mean, or your country, or your you don't have to stand by. We're not nutters. We're not just going to go, all right then, I forgive you, like shout. No, I mean, you should forgive them, but that doesn't mean you can't like forcefully usher them out of your house. Doesn't mean you want to like go utterly on the attack like either. I've seen spur of the moment things at Speaker's Corner when Christians have defended and then carried on defending a little bit too long. But we are human, and what you can do, like, you know. Thanks, Jonathan. He came in and saved me from waffling on for another 10 minutes. Last chance. And then okay, Cherokee is saying within the Old Testament there are just wars. In Christ we are to keep peace as much as possible. That's the key phrase though, as possible. It's not possible when someone has your like nan by the throat and is threatening to rape them. These are wild like scenarios I'm throwing out. I'm just trying to think what would really drive me to violence nowadays. But we are overcomers in him. Yes, we are. And yet, she's got it covered from all bases. We turn the cheek when insulted for him. So that's a caveat. Like that's a different thing. It's been foretold that we will be hated because they hated him first. Miss Biggie, I like chocolate sauce with my chocolate ice cream with chocolate sauce. I haven't had it for ages. I might have one on Sunday. Okay, sorry. Oh, yeah, Miss Piggy, I was going to message you about food actually earlier. Isn't it funny how these things come around? That was the first crusade, Isaac. Yes, Urban II oversaw that. And it was so popular as an idea because he promised remission of sins, like utter remission of sins. There were little old ladies, there were kids, every man and his dog was trying to trot off to the Holy Land. In as much as he had to call a bit of a meeting, like sharpish, and say, do you know what? Like told the bishops and everyone, like go out. No, tell them really, like some of them had to stay at home. It's a good job I wasn't there because I'd been shouting out, they're already forgiven, you know, that sort of thing. Mohammed, I don't know why you're telling me that. He's saying we do have Sharia law. I hope you mean you as in, or we as in Muslims. You have British rules for rapists. Yes, we do. I don't know what that has to do with individual Christians was the answer. Like, what would Jesus think about us defending against? Not about incarcerating or trying to rehabilitate or, I don't know, like chemically castrating or whatever depending on what country you're in. Yeah, it's not that. It's what would Jesus think about using force to achieve defense, I think. Turning the other cheek, it also says if someone asks you to walk a mile, walk two. If someone asks for your tunic, give them your cloak also. So no one's ever asked for my tunic. Just trying to translate tunic in my head. Potentially they have. But like scripture has a milk level, like a not superficial, it's still utterly true, but a surface level and then a deeper level. So of course, if someone asks you to walk a mile, walk two. If they only want to go a mile, then you just carry on walking. That doesn't really make sense. Just like, bye then. It's about if someone asks you for something, go further than they require, like do more for them than they are asking. Christ did more for us than we could ever deserve. So one is the superficial level, one is the K joke that she just tagged on the end, and the other is the deeper meaning. So turn the other cheek can be seen as, because we don't fight against the flesh. I think it ties into that. And what's a slap between friends? Don't slap me to find out. Because, but you know what I mean? Like it's not if someone stabs you in the back, turn around and let him stab you in the chest as well. Like it doesn't work for all forms of being attacked. So yeah, I mean, by all means, if it's a slap on the cheek, it's very specific, then you can turn the other one. What if they slap you on the shoulder? These are the questions I wrestle with daily, Mohammed. That's a bit, well, a joke. Anywho, yes, evil. Cherokee is pointing out that evil is to be fought against utterly. We fight not against flesh, but we do fight against the wiles, the powers, the principalities, the darkness. But we forgive those who have repented, like who feel sorry. And also, God grants repentance. I don't know about with non-believers, to be fair. I don't really think that verse is specific. I think it's to believers. But God grants us repentance. So if you're, I've got a situation, like I often wonder, like, well, because I'm me, I just like got back to the Bible and started like really having a look at like the implications of certain different verses in conjunction with the verse, you know, the here a little, there a little, precept upon precept, line upon line. But if, I don't know, like the Holy Spirit convicts you and then God grants the repentance. If you've only felt convicted, maybe, and not repentance, potentially there's a blessing in there, or there's a struggle, or there's something to be forged within you that will be to God's glory. That's our ultimate purpose. And not all sins or wrong situations or things that on the surface, on the milk of it, I guess is the way to look at it, are, you know, because Yahweh searches the hearts and minds of men, like outward actions are dismissed in as much as, you know, don't pray on the corner, like don't just act this way, like do this thing, but do it in secret. It's the intention of your heart that is paramount. Like, so if you, I mean, theft is theft is theft. If you stole like bread from the temple, as it were, I'm thinking of the Old Testament, like for a certain purpose, there's gradation to it. Like if you smuggle masses of drugs into a country to make money, that's smuggling, or whatever, that's breaking the law of that land. If you smuggle Bibles into China for Christians, that's, do you know what I mean? Like it's the same criminal charge, but it's a very different set of circumstances. And that's why even within civil society, laws take into account if we have a jury of our peers to ascertain the facts. And even if we don't, like the extenuation, like the extenuating circumstances that accompany stuff. I don't know where I went with that. I was in a little personal situation and I thought, shut up, you're on YouTube. So that's how I've ended that one. But yeah, like I just pray that God's with me all the time. Like I don't stop praying that I'm just going to miraculously become, I don't know. Yeah, I've got the Holy Spirit who is all knowing, so I don't need to be all knowing. If I don't get an answer from God, or if I don't know the answer, I'm just gonna have to wait. And there you go, as them apples. Right. Any more? Excellent, Xander. That's nice. That's odd that it came up in the conversation also. Miss Piggy, I have no idea who you're talking to, because I don't do that. Yeah, it's as wise as serpents and as gentle as doves, but maybe you have a different translation. Yes, Jonathan, it is. So yeah, if you're going to be as wise as a serpent, like you're not going to, I don't know, like do things that are, oh, I'm just thinking of my own situation. I don't know. It depends how you think about it. But I would say this, that the mind is the thing that Paul talks about as being deceptive. Like the Old Testament says that the heart is deceptive above all else who can know it, or desperately wicked above all else who can know it. And the answer is God, but it doesn't say that. But then Christ gives us a new heart of flesh. And then Paul doesn't say, like, I mean, we're to guard the heart, but I don't believe that's anything to do with love and stuff like that. That's to do with the heart being seen, I guess, in ancient Greece as the seat of knowledge. But Paul tells us, take captive our thoughts and conform them, like showing us that he's talking to believers. So he's implicitly suggesting that the mind continues. So you can, like Lewis was saying, you can have something that is good and twist it around in your mind. You know, Satan doesn't is not big on God's promises either. So, you know, just, I don't know, like find a few of the promises. There's hundreds of them. Like I've got my favorites. Just write them out, print them out, like learn them, you know, off by heart, as it were, because they're just indispensable in terms of like insecurities and, you know, that jazz. Oh, thank you, Miss Biggie. I thought, oh my gosh, what's she going on about? Okay, I reckon that's enough of me for the minute because it's like been an hour. I'd love it if I knew what was going on in the chat, but okay. What? Take revenge on people who throw people's shoes outside the mosque? Okay, I've lost the plot. And if anyone who's watching this afterwards hasn't got the live chat protest yet, then I don't know, stick around and see tomorrow. Okay, then, on that bombshell, as it were, I will eventually get this video, snip it into the Lewis only bits, which there are 3 of them, and then I will put them like sequentially, it's a good word, isn't it, on my other channel with links to the, or let's not get carried away. Anywho, on that, another task for me to do. I'm going to press the first button because why not? Someone's got to. I'm the only one here, apart from you lovely people. Give it 30 seconds, not even that, in case anyone's got anything lovely to say. Nightbot, there you go. If you haven't subscribed yet, why not? What are you waiting for? Said Nightbot. All right then, that's me. Honestly, I just can't wait around for these long goodbyes. They kill me. Excellent. Thank you, Martin. You just saved the day. Good night, love. That's a very good. Miss Piggy, I'm going to okay your comment any minute now. If only I had an admin in here. But no. Armor of God seems to have fallen asleep. Oh, there he is. And Cherokee. Sorry, lovely. I'm going to read Cherokee's. The Hebrew word for revenge or vengeance is nagar. Oh, why did I go into that without knowing the pronunciation? An ethical demand that connotates maybe justice, and it refers to restoration or balancing of honor, which ultimately belongs to God alone. So it's a balance, like it's a scales of justice, as it were, to Nagam. Okay. All right then. Anywho, Mohammed's giving out life advice now. Will it ever end, Miss Piggy? Play nicely now in the next comment section. Oh, it was a typo. It's Nagam. Who knows at this stage of the game? I got to go. Right, lots of love. See you soon. Bye.